And welcome to Weather Nag and Focus on this finally Friday. A nice day outside. A few fair weather cumulus clouds here in the valley and into Lakes Country. A lot of other places around us have sunny skies, but regardless, it's a beautiful day out there with lighter winds out of the northeast and temperatures in the low 60s. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel. And Bridgette, we were talking before we came into the studio here about, the sunshine is nice. This will help dry out some of those fields that are still a little bit sticky, including our own with Jim, our farmer. So hopefully this helps, and then a little bit of a wind, a little bit of a breeze tomorrow should help even further. Hopefully Jim can get out and plant tomorrow because rain comes back into the forecast, and quite a bit of rain. It looks like now from Sunday night into Monday night we could have well over an inch across a lot of the area. So that'll kind of muck things up after a couple of dry days.
And there's still areas that it's just, they're probably not going to be quite ready before we start to get rain on Sunday. It's just how it is. Again, I know that feeling. It's nice. The lawns are starting to turn green. We want to go. But there certainly is the fact that if the ground's not ready, it's not the right time. Mm-hmm. So we're going to see what folks start to do soon, very soon.
Yeah, right.
I'm not in a panic yet.
And Mother Nature, again, has to cooperate. And it's just gonna for the next couple of days. I mean, the rain we get over the weekend is going to be hit and miss.
Right.
Nothing
depends
widespread.
where you are.
Yeah, definitely. And nothing heavy. Even the areas that do get the rain over the weekend, we're not looking at anything heavy out there. But a few scattered showers are going to come back into the forecast for Saturday and Sunday after a beautiful day today. Now, the showers on Saturday should be late and more than likely overnight Saturday night. So much of the day Saturday should be dry. Breezy, though, with highs in the mid to upper 60s, south-southeast winds at 15 to 30 on Saturday. Sunday, we're looking at, more clouds than sun, a little more humid on Sunday as well, with highs in the upper 60s, both Saturday and Sunday. And it looks like on Sunday, a slightly better chance of a hit-or-miss shower or thunder shower throughout the day, but a better chance of rain and storms coming in Sunday night and into Monday. And some of those storms on Monday could be on the strong side. We'll keep a close eye on that, favoring Lakes Country and points southward for any severe weather. But again, it's close enough to home where it's something we'll keep an eye on for you. But we're getting very strong indications for most of our models that we're looking at 1 to 1.5 inches of rain across much of the area. And this was predicted to be the wet part of the LRC cycle. Somebody emailed me, what about early May? That was supposed to be the second part, like the end of this month and into the first few days in May. Were supposed to be the very wet parts of the LRC cycle. This wet part here at the end of the month, right on target, but the one in early May looks like that one may scoot to our south with heavy rain just to our south instead of up in the northern plains. Not dead set on that, but that's the way it is appearing right now. And then we go into about a 7 to 10 day dry stretch after that, with our next good chance of rain coming in probably about the 13th through the 15th of May.
And the middle of May, great timing for us to continue farming, right? That's about the time where we're still planting some soybeans. We're thinking about sunflowers, maybe getting a little closer to it, et cetera. So things are going okay right now.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there anybody that you've talked to there? I mean, it's early for the most part. Anybody kind of getting in a panic mode saying, oh, man.
They're always in a panic. Let's
more so than normal, seeing that, hey, we might get an inch and a half of rain.
Yeah.
How long would that set? Each farm is different.
Yeah, it depends on your soil types.
Right.
How warm it is. Are you no-till? Are you open black soils? So there's a lot of variability as to what each one's going to look like. For some folks, did you get your fertilizer on last fall? Or are you still trying to take care of some of that this spring? What is your farm's structure and situation? So there's plenty to be thought out. But seed is moving, equipment's out of the sheds. Folks are in the field in many places and trying to get as much done as they can. Hopefully not getting stuck, hopefully not mudding in any soils, etc. So we're just trying to accomplish our goals as best possible.
That's all you can do this time of the year.
That's right. And it's going to be okay. So I know that gets nerve-wracking, but it's going to be okay. So we're looking forward to seeing the progress. Now, for those who are thinking ahead, in fact, this is a topic that hopefully one of our guests can even touch on today as well. North Dakota has a program. It's called Rural Leadership North Dakota, and they are about to start their 11th class. This is not just for those who farm, but those who are in small rural communities across our state. And it's a leadership class in order to help bring a number of skills back into the communities to help improve what may exist or bring new ideas back to it. It's an 18-month program. Applications are currently due by June 1st. There are 7 in-state seminars. You'll have expert speakers, tours of agricultural and community businesses. Then additionally, there'll be 3 out-of-state trips, Washington, D.C., Minneapolis. And the other is the capstone of the whole project. In the past, classes have visited Brazil, Costa Rica, Panama, Thailand, Vietnam, Chile, Spain, and Ghana. And this has been going on for about 20 years in this program. You can certainly put your applications in now. Again, those are due by June 1st. What you can expect is at the end of the program, bringing home additional leadership skills, critical thinking, effective communication, decision-making, strategic planning, even conflict management. When you live in a small town, there's always the sidestepping of what could potentially be a conflict. And so this is a way to help people manage through that, especially as progressive projects are suggested and move forward. It's a great program. There are programs just like it in multiple states like South Dakota, Minnesota. I've written letters of recommendation for folks in any of those states as well as Texas. They call theirs TALL, Texas Ag Leaders. And so I think that it is a worthwhile project if you have the time. And frankly, we don't all have the time. We're busy people. But this is worthwhile, particularly to help bring more to your small communities. We'd love to see that happen for many. So again, that's Rural Leadership North Dakota. And it is worth your time and investment, particularly for the community in which you live.
Nice.
One thing that folks can be doing. So additionally, there is I don't think we talked about this the other day. Did we talk about the NDSU fencing school next week?
No.
Oh, good. I signed you up. Okay. So NDSU's livestock fencing school is April 30th. That will be out at Minot. And NDSU is putting this on through their extension service. It'll be at the North Central Research Extension Center. You may laugh because, well, I just need to stick a post in the ground and string some wire on it. No. This is a little bit more than that. The classes that they are hosting are going to not only talk about virtual and energized fencing, how this goes in with precision agriculture, fencing cost share programs, and the one that I think is probably most important right now is fencing law. If you all recall, there is a federal lawsuit right now against a ranch couple in western South Dakota, the Mod Ranch, because they have had decades of easements with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. But unfortunately, Fish and Wildlife is saying that things are not copacetic in their opinion. They feel that the mods took over additional land that they should not have, when in reality, what's changed is the landscape. Rivers, creeks, coulees move, etc. Fences have to be adjusted. And so without forewarning, without friendly discussion, there was, in fact, a lawsuit filed against the mods. There are a number of entities that are working on behalf of them. They have not only South Dakota legislators involved, but also National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Their legal counsel has stepped in to have discussions with them. I think RCAF has spoken on their behalf. And so hopefully this comes to a good resolution. But that's a reason why, if you're, as a rancher, if you are doing anything with public grazing lands and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, if you have easements, attending a class like this to hear about the fencing law is worth your time. So I think that's worth it for folks to sign up and be a part of it.
All right.
Let me know how the class goes when you get back from Minot.
I will. If I'm in one piece still. No.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I would tell you that I'm going, except I will be in Beulah next week. So I'm on the exact same day, to be honest.
Otherwise, you'd be there.
Otherwise, I'd actually go.
Okay.
I'd have an interest in seeing that.
Yeah.
And the virtual fencing options, they're not a fit for every farm, but I think the rotational grazing and some of the newer structure is a worthwhile discussion. So besides, I'm curious. My grandma said I was just nosy. You can call it whatever you want.
No, you're
but
curious.
I'm still willing to go find out. Yes.
It sounds better.
That's right. Oh, and so those are just a few of the things that are going on. We actually are going to, first of all, I want to make sure encourage everybody to call in. the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. If you are following along on Facebook or YouTube today, those channels are WDAY, Weather and Ag in Focus. You'll see us in studio. We'll have a guest in studio. We'll have a guest on the phone. Got a lot going on today with guests. Those guests are going to include Sarah Lovas and Marsha Van Leare. Now, the ladies and I are very familiar with each other as agronomists. We've all worked in different aspects, whether it's fertilizer, crop protection. I've been a customer for them. They've been a customer for me. And we want to talk about what's going on in the spring right now as far as fertilizer, weed control. It's still a little early, but what are some of the things that we can be doing better, or some learning moments that we could have before we start putting seed in the ground? Or if you're already doing it, what can we do to improve that situation? So they're going to join us here just in a short while after we return from the markets with American Ag Network. Welcome back. Welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. You know, when your guest texts you at 6:30 in the morning and says, "I'm sorry, I have a family thing, I can't be there today," but your friends are kind enough to know that they can step right in and help. That's a great day. And as we were on the break, Marsha and I were talking to each other. We're like, "What should we talk about today?" So I'm kind of making a list here. So we're really well planned out today. But before we get to that, I got to make sure to say technology should be smooth on your farm or your ranch. And if it is not, the person to call is Chris Sherman with Tech Support Farm. He will help you out. I know that technology is a big part of our lives in agriculture, and it really is to those of us who are going to be talking today, because we have to make sure things work smoothly. That's why we have boosters in our pickups for our phones and so forth. So I want to introduce on the phone, on video actually, so you can see her, is Sarah Lovas. Sarah is from the mapping cave for GK Technology. She's making sure that all the precision maps go out for fertilizer. And then we've got Marsha Van Leare. She is with Gowan Company, and Marsha is on the crop protection side, like I used to be as well. So we're going to make sure that all the weeds are dead after Sarah fertilizes the entire field for us. Okay, folks. In our text messages we've been trading this morning and in our discussions we've had, we wanted, one thing that was surprising is Marsha says, okay, wheat herbicides, moving fast and furiously. Why is everybody focusing on wheat acres? I'm going to ask you, Marsha, what your opinion is on that before I go to Sarah with fertilizer and why it might impact her.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think we...
Way close, Marsha. You got to talk way close.
Closer.
Yes.
Okay, like right up here.
Right
okay.
there.
All
yep.
right.
Okay.
We're very intimate here with the microphone.
Go ahead.
So I think with the wheat acres, it's first in the field. Wheat goes in first. I'm not going to say it's early, but, we're kind of right on time. I did talk to somebody else, and he said even his seed wheat is up this year. He goes, normally we're selling 6,000, 7,000 bushels, and they're up to like 12,000, 13,000 bushels. I haven't looked to really see what markets are doing. I think you had made the comment that soybeans aren't very attractive right now. So I think, that's the biggest thing with wheat right now is they're able to get it in right now. It's time to go. Mm-hmm. These guys want to go. It's been a long winter. Time to get something done. Works great for me. Except for when you run out of product. And I've always believed that once people start planting wheat, they're like, well, it's still nice, but it's not nice enough for me to do soybeans, and this ground's ready, so I'm just going to go plant some wheat. And, oh, wait, I might plant another quarter because I can. So, Sarah, from a fertilizer perspective, are you getting a bunch of requests for maps and so forth that are changing over because of wheat?
For wheat, I'd say most of the wheat is probably done. With what I'm doing with GK Technology, so, we write prescriptions for fertilizer, seed. We're even starting to dabble a little bit, getting into some residual herbicides in some places and those sorts of things. So really, by the time that the air seeder gets to the field to plant the wheat, my job is done. I've written the prescription for the fertilizer spreader to go across the field, or the prescription that the air seeder itself is going to be applying in the field. So, all right, is that a little bit better there?
Yeah,
Let's
that's going to help. Now we can hear you a little better. Okay.
Okay, awesome. All right. So a lot of the work is done by the time you see the air seeder in the field. So I think most of the wheat, like in the Hillsborough area, is really quite done. I mean, I've been seeing the spreaders going all over the place here for the last couple of weeks. And so I think a lot of the small grain is kind of getting to the point where, we're getting to be done. I think out by the Devil's Lake area, there's probably still quite a bit left to go. Depends upon how wet it's been in the soil profile and those kinds of things. Again, right here in the Hillsborough area, I don't know if the frost was all out of the ground, but I think some guys were putting some small grain in the ground on the frost like a couple weeks ago, if it was dry enough to go on the surface.
To travel. But that's not uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
We hear that all the time. I'm just going to let the frost come up through it. So as a former retail field agronomist, Marsha, any thoughts to that? I know you're shaking your
She's
head.
cringing.
She's a little bit.
I personally think some of these guys push the planting dates a little bit too much. I kind of feel sorry for those little wheat seeds.
Burr, it's cold out here.
Yeah, I'm like, do you have a fur coat that you're putting on them before you put them in? When you're looking around, so floaters. I'm up by Northwood, west of Grand Forks. Their floaters really just started going here. Well, really this week. There's a little bit going last week. You saw a little bit of field work last week. Friday slowed them down, and then Monday it was almost like gangbusters. I know like I told you, my dad was up here from southern Minnesota for Easter, and we toured eastern North Dakota. Dad didn't realize how much he was going to get to ride around with me. And we were counting the guys in the field on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Frost was coming out of the ground pretty good. I know up around that Walhalla area, it wasn't yet. It was still pretty wet up there. Generally when frost comes out, we see the pumps running.
Yeah, tile pumps.
And I did not see a tile pump running until we got up to the Walhalla area, the Walhalla Pembina area. And that's when I finally saw tile pumps running.
Okay. And we'll probably see quite a few more of those in the next days. I mean,
let's hope.
Well, Dean was just talking about rainfall. So just that alone would make a difference.
Yeah. And I mean, we've got widespread 1 to some spots as much as 2 inches of rain coming Sunday night into Monday. So that could push back some farmers that haven't even gotten in the fields yet. When it comes to seeds, though, are we getting like special? I mean, let's compare this to, let's say, 20 years ago. Would we even think about putting seed in the ground 2 weeks ago? Like, you were shaking your head. You think it's early now, or when they planted it 2 weeks ago. Is this any different from 20 years ago? Have these seeds gotten any? No? Okay. You know where I was going.
There's always that grower that wants to be first in the field. There's always that grower.
There's always that grower that's got to be the last guy out of the field too.
That's my
just the
neighbor.
neighborhood.
That's my neighbor. So, but I mean, seeds. The vigor on the seeds, I think, have gotten a little bit better. More widespread now maybe is guys are using fungicide, and I think that's giving them maybe a false sense of protection. But like I always told, growers, using fungicide on your seeds, it's cheap insurance.
Sure it is. And so Sarah, our soil science friend, I'm going to ask Sarah to weigh in too.
Well, I was going to actually tell a really great story from growing up in Hoople, North Dakota. So I'm originally from Hoople. And if you've ever driven by Hoople on Highway 18, there's actually a little field there on like the west side of Highway 18. And that little nook has always been kind of warm right there. And I can remember when, I don't know if I was in high school or junior high or something, those guys planted that to wheat in March that year. And so it was in March. And I remember that year, hearing the rumors on that, 100 bushel wheat, just absolutely beautiful, came up, was absolutely gorgeous. A couple years later, that little patch warmed up again. So they did it again. And then, of course, we got like a big, huge blizzard and a lot of rain in April. And really, it's interesting because if you get snow on wheat, generally speaking, it's fairly resilient and it'll be fine. But what'll get you is if you end up with a lot of ponding of water on that, because then they'll drown out. You just don't have enough root mass and places for that water to go. So it was not that great that following year, but it's always interesting. I don't worry so much about small grains. I don't like to seed chili corn,
right?
And I don't like to seed chili soybeans.
Okay, all right. So it is 1:30. We're going to touch on the news. When you say chili, that's relative, Sarah, because I grew up in the south central part of North Dakota in McIntosh County. I will tell you that as a June birthday, I have spent time planting in the field wearing coveralls, because it got cold enough that. So we know that things can be very different in this area. But we'll be back to talk more about spring planting and what's going on after this. Here we go. It is springtime and everybody is thrilled and excited to get to the field. And if you are thinking about getting some drone work done, you could talk to Hire Drone Service. They are out at Leonard, North Dakota. They can do some spraying for you in field. They've got the ability to do pastures and so much more. Don't be shy. Give them a look. Get a chance to talk to Hire Drone Service out at Leonard, North Dakota. So guests with us today, I have Marsha Van Leare from Gowan in studio, and I have Sarah Lovas with GK Technology on us with video, so you can be watching us on the live stream. Okay, so one of the topics of conversation that we were talking about, and full disclosure, we are in a text group and we have these types of conversations all the time, like, hey, does this work? Does that not work? Because we've all been in this industry a little while. All right, I wanted to talk about soil pH and soil organic matter and that effect on herbicides. So Sarah, do you want to start with those as a pre, but then Marsha, because you sell a product like Sonolan as a PPI, pre-plant incorporated, how do those affect it? By the way, I love Sonolan. It's my favorite. But I do love Sonolan.
I'll preface the conversation here, but Marsha might want to weigh in a little bit about how the soil parameters kind of affect the activity of, for example, her products, since we've got them sitting there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that's really interesting about precision agriculture today, especially in the western side of North Dakota, I have a client out there who is actually working with residual pesticides, residual herbicides from a standpoint of variable rate, which is an interesting concept. And so, backing up just a little bit, one of the things that we do quite commonly in precision agriculture is we do zone soil samples. And so when we get zone soil samples back, basically what we have done is divided up the field in areas that are geographically similar or different from each other as far as how the crop grows across the field. And so within that, we get different soil sampling parameters back. So you can find some variability across the field dealing with soil pH and soil organic matter. Interestingly enough, one of the things that we find quite frequently is we have to base our rates for our residual herbicides that might get used in a pre-emerge application based on those soil parameters. So you don't want to spray your herbicide with a rate that's too great, where you could have the injury happen to your crop, or extra carryover issues that could occur going into next year's crop. And likewise, if you don't spray enough with those soil parameters, you might not get the weed control that you actually want. And so one of the things that we've been dealing with is taking a look at how can we use this soil sampling data from a perspective of that soil pH and organic matter, so that we can really dial in those rates and make those variable rate applications across the field. So once we get those soil sampling data in, we go to the herbicide label, the pesticide label, and we base our rates that need to be applied in different parts of the field based on that label, which would enter in Madam Marsha over there with her pesticide label. So Marsha, if I gave you...
We have to read the label. What? We got to read the label.
Just put it out. You're good to go.
Isn't that amazing? Yes. People actually do read the labels.
All right, Marsha, when they're reading your label, what is...
Okay, we're reading my label. So really with Sonolan, or a lot of pre-emerge, pre-plant, pre-emerge, we really look at, so the lighter the soil, the more issues that we can see. So Sonolan, for instance, we lower that rate when we get onto those sands. Authority has that issue. Spartan has that issue, especially, and you also see it on clay hilltops.
Oh,
so definitely. Okay, I'll be honest, and maybe I'm biased. And Bridgette, you have more experience than I do with Sonolan. I don't tend to see a lot of carryover issues into other crops or even crop damage with like a Sonolan, as long as they're following and lowering the rate as needed. Now,
right,
that being said, most of the majority of, the Sonolan that goes out, we're at 2 to 3 pints.
Mm-hmm.
But we do tend to lower it when we get into some lighter soils. Now on the other side, we get into some peat soils, which are, we have some of those up in northwest Minnesota, and we're going at 4 pints and not having carryover issues.
Well, I think one thing we got to keep in mind is that when it comes to, as Sarah was saying, the soil variability is tremendous across one field. You can vary in your pH and your organic matters, and that's going to, it's not going to affect the entire field. It'll affect parts of the field. And because of the weather that we've had in the last 5 years, I don't know if there's a quick answer to this, but do either one of you think that we see more carryover concerns from herbicide to the next crop due to pH or drought?
I think it's going to be a combination. I do think that we are more aware of carryover issues now than we were probably 7 years ago. And I think it's because we have less rainfall right now, which is interesting. But, we've got this interaction of pH and soil organic matter, and you kind of need to know what your active ingredient is as to what the issues are gonna really be. So, when you're thinking about what Marsha was just talking about with those sandy areas are not going to have a lot of organic matter, right? There's not a lot of organic matter. There's not a lot of clay. And so, it's very possible that organic matter is not going to buffer out that activity of that herbicide. So the injury potential is going to be just that much greater. Whereas she was talking about the peat soils, obviously that's like all organic matter. That's the whole point of a peat soil, which is why she has to raise her rate there. So it's been really fun to actually be able to dial those rates in across the field. I know from my crop scouting days, it was, you're trying to figure out what rate you want to use from a flat rate perspective across the field where things are changing, and you stumble on that area where you see crop injury, and it's because you just can't get the right rate in that little spot for what needs to happen. So I'm really excited to see how we can bring this world of precision agriculture together with good practices for herbicide management to really dial in those rates in the right spot of the field. And this is actually a really new area of precision agriculture. Managing pesticides from a variable rate standpoint is kind of a new thing if you really think about it.
Marsha, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I guess the first thing that popped into my mind when Sarah was saying that is, how is this going to work towards resistance?
Well,
because now that we're able to manage those fields better, I really think this variable rate technology is also going to help that resistance issue that,
for specific weeds.
Yeah, for specific weeds. But I really think that that's going to help because, as crop scouts are out there looking at fields, they know if a field has a certain issue and maybe it's in one spot as opposed to another spot. Granted, that's not normally how it works. But I think, as new as this is, I really look at this going into the resistance issue and seeing how that's going to play out too, because I think that'll be interesting. So I just had a squirrel moment right there. Sorry, Sarah.
But Marsha, to your point, you are so right on the money with that. Okay, so if you dial those rates down to the point where you're not going to have crop injury issues in some of those places of the field, that means you probably have also, in a flat rate situation without precision agriculture, okay, that means you've also lowered that rate to the other parts of the field. So now you're not getting the weed activity that you really need to manage those resistant weeds. And honestly, it wasn't so long ago when resistant weeds were not the major issue that they are today.
Right.
And maybe it wasn't quite as big of a deal, but today it is. I've made recommendations to farmers to go out and pull that one weed that made it through the herbicide application.
Yes. Okay. So you guys, the look on Dean's face as he's listening to this discussion, he's like, what are you guys like at lunch? So, and actually we're going to do that later today, but let's just say our discussions are fairly entertaining.
Let's just say that I still have muscle memory on pulling cocklebur because that was literally our weed at our farm growing up,
Soybeans.
Dad would make us stop on the bean bar, and we'll have that conversation on a whole nother day because most people don't know what bean bars are.
Right, that's another one.
And we had to stop and pull cocklebur.
Mm-hmm.
And I was out with a grower when I was working retail. I was out with a grower, and I saw you had cocklebur, and all of a sudden I bend over and I'm pulling cocklebur. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
It's a habit.
It's a habit.
I did the same thing with velvet leaf. I'm like, "You're not letting this get in your field.
No,
this
you're
is
not.
leaving.
This
We're
has to go."
going."
Okay, I'm going to switch gears on us, and I'm going to go to livestock, which Sarah's panic button just went, what? Because Sarah's always like, I don't know livestock as well, but she's good at all things. And so Marsha and I were kind of having this conversation off air as well. We're going to summarize this, that there was an incident in, I believe it was in California. Help me if I get any of this wrong. Nevada. So Nevada. And it was a vet who had been called out to a horse owner's pasture, well, corrals. They were actually in a corral, and the horse needed to be treated. You need to understand that this was an intact stallion and a young animal as well. Put that in the context of an adolescent boy. There's a lot of hormones floating around in that critter, okay? And the vet proceeded to treat the animal, but what he needed to do, I think they had to use anesthesia, and to bring the animal back around, the vet took his foot and hit the animal in the face. Now, he wasn't doing this in an animal cruelty scenario. So, Marsha, what did I miss in that summary?
I mean, that's essentially what happened. So it was
And you own horses.
I own hay burners. They're great lawnmowers. This vet was called out to an unhandled yearling stallion. So think about 800, 900 pounds horse, intact, full of, like Bridgette said, hormones to beat the band. Had been running with mares, so that doesn't help the situation. Like I said, was unhandled, and if anybody has dealt with unhandled livestock at all, I mean...
It's a rodeo.
Yeah. And there was about a 10-second video, 20-second video that got released of, we'll just say, animal abuse in quotes.
And that was the way it was presented, was that it was animal abuse, taken completely out of context of what was really happening.
So, and if there was issues with how the vet was handling this animal, I don't understand why the owner didn't step in and say, hey, stop what you're doing. What happened was the horse had been anesthetized.
They used anesthesia
on him. And he was in an unnatural position because he kept on kicking and getting up against the corrals. And so the vet basically kicked the horse in the face, which, I mean...
It has to happen sometimes.
And then he had ropes around the horse. Well, there was 3 ropes, and they said he was choking the horse out. Well, if you look at how the ropes were, he was actually broadening the pressure. Ultimately, what happened is this video got released onto the internet, and a mob mentality, basically, this vet took his life.
Yeah, he committed suicide and was found dead shortly after all of this.
So, unfortunately, we already have issues in the large animal vet area of not having enough vets. And for people, keyboard warriors, and we've seen it in other aspects of agriculture. I mean, we see it, in the GMO versus non-GMO, organic versus inorganic, or, conventional, blah, blah, blah. People get too excited about a 10-second video, and they don't see the whole thing. There was a post the vet had posted what happened that day. There was another person that was a trainer that had posted what happened.
With accuracy.
And what to expect. I mean, okay, I grew up on a sow farm. If you sit there and you look at animals are brutal. I mean, look at a mad mama cow if you try to go and take her calf and take her calf. I mean, sometimes physical force is needed to control the animal.
And veterinarians, besides the owner, the livestock owner, veterinarians have their heart in the right place for absolutely everything that they do. The reason that there is such a high burnout in large animal veterinarians is because they are so committed to taking care of those animals, and they are so short-handed. The downside of this whole situation that was taken completely out of context is that a man took his life because he felt so bad that someone misinterpreted what happened. And I think in the stress of what we're all going through, that is an area that we don't want to see that ever happen again.
I mean, I have horses.
Yep.
You know, my horses can be jerks. And I'll be the first one to tell you that. My animals can be jerks. And, you know, I had the farrier come out. Okay, so farrier, they're sitting there and they're trimming, you know, I'm supposed to be trimming my horses and whatever. And if my horses are jerks and they're pivoting or doing whatever and they're not standing still like they're supposed to, like they're trained to do, I have told the farrier, you have every right to discipline this horse and tell him and make him do what he's supposed to do. Because if I don't and the vet or the farrier gets hurt, well, then I have nobody to trim my horse. It's the same way with the vet. I have told the vets when they come out to our farm that you have...
Yep. You've got to take control of those things.
Yes.
So, Sarah, with the last about minute and a half we've got for our time, any comments you want to make on whether what we just talked about with that mob mentality and or spring season from your perspective?
I would just, the closing comment that I really have, there's a lot about livestock that I don't know, but what I do know is that if you ever get a chance to be a dog and live under Marsha Van Leer's house, you are the luckiest being in the world, because they live a pretty good life.
They truly, truly do.
Yeah, they're spoiled rotten.
So
that's all I know.
But they're trained.
But they're trained.
They are trained.
Get your prescriptions out there. Get your planting prescriptions done. Stay safe. I know in the next little bit before we get to the rain here, there's going to be a lot of long nights. Don't forget to sleep and don't forget to, slow down a little bit before the rain that we got coming.
Have patience with us out on the road, right? We're moving a lot of equipment right now, too. Please. We appreciate
Please have patience. I was watching that today, and it's scary.
So, Dean, with just a little bit of time left in the show, would you like to give us all a preview of the weekend weather?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have rain in the forecast and quite a bit of it for Sunday night into Monday. Before that, though, we're looking at decent day today with temperatures in the mid-60s. A mix of sun and clouds out there with light winds out of the northeast. Upper 30s tonight, and then the weekend, we'll see a few more clouds around Saturday and Sunday. It's going to be a little breezy on Saturday. Southeast winds 15 to 30 and gusty. Might see a shower towards evening, but most of the day on Saturday is dry with mid-upper 60s. Mid-upper 60s on Sunday with a chance of a few more scattered showers, maybe a thunder shower on Sunday, but widespread rain hits the area Sunday night and on into Monday. With thunderstorms, and some of those could be on the strong side Sunday night into Monday. We'll keep a close eye on that. And then we'll dry things out most of next week. A slight chance of some showers on Thursday, but looks like dry weather all next week and into that following weekend as well, with temperatures warming by the end of next week into that weekend, upper 60s to 70s.
Nice.
So some really nice weather heading our way, but we've got to get through this very wet period Sunday night into Monday, where, again, all of our models are pretty consistent on 1 inch to 1.5 inches of rain across most of the area, with some spots maybe a little bit more.
Well, a big thank you as we get ready to go to the field for Here We Grow to Peterson Farm Seed. They are our seed category sponsor for that. Thank you to those folks. Additionally, just want to give a shout out. Don't forget that your Rural Leadership North Dakota application is due by June 1st. And Marsha had a great experience doing it, right?
It was excellent. If you guys apply, be part of the program, it's a great experience.
Thanks for being here.
Have a great weekend.